You can change your brain. And if you change your brain, you change your life. Today I'll be explaining neuroplasticity, how each day we have many choices we can make that will change the actual physical structure of the brain. No matter your age, no matter how stuck you feel, once you understand how your brain works, you become empowered to direct your life path. Over time, we become happier, healthier, and increasingly resilient. Welcome to Root Cause of Happiness. I'm Dr. Sarah Bryn Morrow, licensed psychologist, therapeutic yoga teacher, and optimal wellness educator. I teach the physiology of mental health and the skills to overcome suffering at the root cause. My intention is to empower others to become increasingly resilient by understanding the many pieces of the puzzle to deep healing. Please join me as we explore the root cause of happiness. Scientists used to believe that our brain was rather stuck once we became adults, that we might just have bad genetics, bad mental health, and that it really was going to stay that way. We also used to think that if you injured your brain, the brain couldn't heal. And it turns out that that was all wrong. And actually, the brain is remarkably resilient. We know that if you do have an injury to your brain, the brain can actually build a new structure, compensating for the tissues that were damaged in your brain. We also know things like when you have an anxiety disorder, the amygdala, the fear center of your brain, tends to be overly large, more cells, more cellular connections, and overly active. And that through therapy, through learning coping strategies to overcome your anxiety disorder, that the actual amygdala can physically change. We can see them shrink, we can see them reduce cellular connections, and the activity of those brain cells calming down. It's amazing how much we can do to reshape the brain across a lifetime. Today we're going to talk about where we have choices, what we can do every day that can help move the brain towards optimal mental health, towards shifting our emotional patterns towards wellness, towards improving our ability to be self-aware, to be able to pause and notice and choose response. It's so fascinating to learn about the brain. I'm very excited to be in this era in which every year there's new information coming out about how the brain actually works. We're learning now that the brain actually has its own immune system, its own microbiome, its own ability to detoxify and have lymphatic flow, things that we didn't know existed many years ago. It's very common in the mental health field that we tend to talk about mental health disorders as if you are stuck with that for life. We'll often say, I have ADHD, or I am depressed. And what's so important to realize is that you are you, living in this current state of your physical body and brain, and that you can potentially rewire and shift that brain, the nervous system function, and the overall health of the physical body once you become empowered with knowledge and tools. So how do we do that? Well, as I've mentioned before, without awareness, you have very little power to direct your life path. We truly need to start with this foundation of self-awareness. I've been studying and practicing yoga for more than half my life, over 20 years, and I'm so grateful that I found yoga early in my life path because of the primary healing capacity of yoga through training mental awareness. So in yoga, we learn to sit and find stillness, to go inward, to listen, to tune in with emotion, and to choose response, to set intention. So I really encourage everybody pursuing deep healing to start with a practice of self-awareness, learning to pause and notice and bring mindful awareness into little moments throughout your day. Perhaps it's when you sit down to eat a meal that you just hesitate and take in the sight, the smell, perhaps the taste, or some gratitude for the food in front of you. When you drive in your car, inevitably you will have delays. When you sit at a red light, or perhaps you're standing waiting in line somewhere, pause and bring awareness. If we can practice this mental awareness, mindfulness, here and there throughout every day, we are changing the structure of the brain. I will have future classes about mindfulness practices and meditation. The research coming out of those fields is just exciting. It is so amazing what we're finding out about how mindfulness changes the brain toward optimal mental health and optimal cognitive function. So we can do little practices throughout every day to pause and notice. You might even leave some sticky notes on your bathroom mirror or next to your bedside table, somewhere where you'll see this reminder to check in with yourself. How am I feeling? What would I call this emotion? What's my mind thinking right now? How's my body doing? How's my tension, my facial expression? Am I relaxed? Am I restless? Noticing how we're reacting to stressors as they show up throughout each day. So we have to start by pausing and noticing and engaging in this ongoing practice of self-study. From awareness, we become empowered to choose what to do from here. So how do we do that? Well, it's very helpful to start by setting intention. That's another wonderful component of yoga philosophy, is to not just notice right now, where am I or how am I, but where am I going in my life path? Who would I like to become? What is my vision, my intention of the person I would like to continue to grow towards over my lifetime? Setting intention is really effective in helping us recalibrate and realign to notice when I'm going off track and suffering, and that I need to intentionally get back on my track, moving towards that intention I've set about the person I'd like to become over time. Now, what I'm not talking about is persona, your resume, how much money you make, what you look like. Those things are really not essential in directing a meaningful life. What is important is, how would I like to feel inside, just day to day? How would I like to respond in life when things are difficult? How would I like to handle my emotions, my difficulties in relationship? What would it look like and feel like to continue to grow and learn and mature, increase my wisdom, my resilience, and realize just how capable I am of living intentionally and moving myself toward as little suffering as possible? So practice awareness. Set your intention. Come back to that intention again and again. And as you notice that you're not living according to that positive intention of your life, realign and recalibrate to keep moving in that right direction. There's a saying you may have heard, which is fake it till you make it. I don't recommend you fake it, but I do recommend that you act the way you wish you felt. So this doesn't mean being inauthentic or suppressing emotion. What this means is realizing that in each tough moment, I have a choice in behavior, in speech, in tone of voice. And if I would like to feel strong, confident, calm, patient, overall fairly content in life, I need to learn how to act that way. Now, there's going to be super tough moments where you're not aware enough to choose that response. Like I said in my first video, everybody freaks out once in a while. But throughout each day, we become stronger as we use our self-awareness to realize, I do have a choice in this moment. If you would like to feel happier, it really helps to smile and laugh and say nice things to not only other people, but also to yourself. If you would like to be more confident and overcome insecurities and self-doubt, it's really helpful if you learn to give yourself messages of encouragement and reassurance, to be grateful, to celebrate your moments of resilience, to realize that there are good things happening throughout each day, and that you can soak in those moments of success or joy or beauty. I love all the work by Dr. Rick Hanson. He has several books. Some of the more notable ones would be The Buddha's Brain, Hardwiring Happiness, and his newest book is called Resilient. And I love his term, hardwiring happiness. And that really is what we're talking about when we refer to neuroplasticity. Realizing that our habits shape our brain. So whatever we do repeatedly is creating our brain structure. And if we can realize when our behaviors and thoughts and words are not supporting optimal mental health, we can realign, pause, redirect, shift. And as we do that, we start to realize that I'm feeling better over time. I'm handling stress more effectively. I don't seem to be as anxious or as reactive as I used to be. So this is the true practice of hardwiring more positive emotional patterns into the brain. When I'm working with children and families, I often will explain the brain like being a big jungle made up of about 100 billion trees, each tree representing one brain cell or neuron. And just like a tree, each brain cell has roots and branches in which it communicates with the brain cells next to it. So when we are born, we have all these brain cells, and it's kind of like an untouched forest without any pathways yet. And as we start to have life experiences, we're learning how to move and control our physical body. We're hearing spoken language and learning how to speak. We're learning life skills. What we're doing is practicing over and over again. And whenever we repeat a behavior, we are strengthening a brain cell pathway. So if you were to go into the jungle and you take a new road for the first time, it's going to be very slow and difficult. It'll be very choppy, very awkward, and take you a long time and a lot of struggle to walk that brand new road. And as we reshape the brain, it can feel very similar. So for example, when you're trying to learn a new skill, at first it's awkward, difficult, confusing, maybe frustrating. You just can't imagine you'll ever get it figured out. But if you keep trying and you keep rehearsing and repeating and practicing, before you know it, you have that skill. So what we've been doing is we've been firing these same brain cells in sequence over and over again. And as we use that brain cell pathway, those brain cells begin to get hardwired together. There's this saying, the brain cells that fire together, wire together. And we're actually building a quicker way that those neurons will communicate with each other. We're hardwiring this neural signal into the brain. This skill is becoming more automatic, more intuitive, the way our brain will work automatically over time. So at first, when we're trying to change our brain, it can feel really difficult. It brings me back to when I was in my young adulthood, and I realized that somehow along the way, I had internalized the voice of an inner bully. I was very self-critical, very unsure of myself or my worth. And when I realized that, I got a little bit mad about that and decided I wanted that to change. That being mean to myself didn't change or improve anything about me, and it wasn't helpful to think that way. So when I first started to work on that, it was really difficult. I would on purpose recognize when those mean inner thoughts popped up, and I would tell that to stop. I would tell my brain, stop that, knock it off. And I would choose kindness towards myself, and I would choose gratitude and self-compassion. And at first, that was very difficult. It felt really fake and artificial, but I knew that I didn't want to think mean thoughts about myself forever, and I really needed that to change. And over time, it did change. It's very rare that I get stuck in a self-critical mindset. And if I do have little self-doubt thoughts pop up, I'm very quick to notice them, and it's more intuitive now for me to be kind to myself. Even when I make mistakes and I'm struggling with those fears of imperfection. So what we have to do is start to build awareness, set our intention around where am I at now? What would I like to have change? And visualize the person I'd love to grow into. From that goal or that intention of our own personal growth, we can decide to pick a goal or two. So just notice something you would like to change about the way your brain automatically functions. Realize when you might be at risk for that automatic negative brain pathway to get triggered, and prepare yourself for those predictable situations. So if, like me, you're working on body image, whenever you might look in the mirror, that's a good time to be listening and on guard for those self-critical thoughts to show up. Maybe it's reacting negatively or with anger towards your children. I think most parents do that, and none of us feel good about it. And it's something we can change if we teach our brain how to respond instead. So know your high-risk situations. Be prepared to predict and notice when that automatic negative reaction might show up. And choose how you'd like to respond instead. Visualize what a more positive, effective response might look like and sound like. You can even write down, these are my automatic negative thoughts, or the behaviors that happen with negative emotion I'd like to change. And these are the coping thoughts I'd like to develop instead. Or this is what self-compassion might sound like. And then when you notice you're in that moment and oops, you're going down that negative road again, use that awareness as your detour point to tell your brain, stop, I don't want to exercise that pathway anymore. And instead, I'm going to go this way. Instead, I would like to think this way, behave this way, speak this way instead. And at first, it's going to feel difficult. It's going to feel, really awkward and uncomfortable. And it might even make you feel like hopeless, like I'll never change this. This is just, I'm stuck with this. But you're not. If you continue to try, to practice, to rehearse, to fight, to learn to respond to life in a new way, then over time, that old brain cell pathway is going to fade away. Just like in a forest, if there was a trail in that forest, if we stop taking that road, very quickly the forest will grow right back over. And similarly, when we can stop a bad habit that's hurting us, that brain cell pathway will pretty quickly fade away and become quiet in the brain. And conversely, it's true. At first, a brand new trail is difficult and it won't be quick and easy at first. But if we continue to redirect ourselves in that direction towards what works better and feels better, then we will slowly over time become more automatically wired to function that way. And if we can choose to continue to prove to the brain that I have a happier perspective of things, I'm hopeful, I'm grateful, I see a lot of beauty in the world around me, I'm able to pause and soak in and really appreciate moments of joy and happiness as they occur in life. You're shaping your brain towards better mental health, more enjoyable emotional patterns over time. So every day we have choice. We can learn to pause, notice, practice self-awareness. Throughout the day, be more mindful, more aware of things. We can choose to hardwire happiness into the brain through practicing gratitude, by smiling, by laughing, by saying positive things to ourselves and others. And we can resist going down those accidental bad habits we've developed over time, knowing that it might feel difficult at first, but if I keep redirecting myself, eventually that will become the brain that I live with. Okay, there's so much we can do to become more resilient, to suffer less, but we just have to understand how the body works and where we have choice. Thank you for joining me at Root Cause of Happiness. If this information was useful to you, please share it with others seeking knowledge and tools for resilience. It is a meaningful contribution to the world when we become proactive in our healing journeys, by learning and growing, by increasing our awareness, by addressing the root cause of happiness.